finally made it to Versailles. It's super complicated to get in here. If you will plan to visit this place, you gotta get off 2 hours before your time.
Marti, leggi da che parte?
Yapıyor adamlar, görüyor musun?
it was.
This is cute.
This is a ballroom where he was holding his all the audience.
Is that the same one? I swear it is.
We saw exactly the same painting in Louvre, and we're gonna find out which one is the replica, which one is the real. But I feel like Louvre is real.
Two pictures. One when he saw that happened in France, and he decided not to publish it. Why? Because it shows that he's very arrogant. You know?
Hmm? We got tickets called Passport. It includes the entrance to the palace, garden, and something Trianon. And per person it cost us like 29 euro, the whole bundle.
スローリーディスペクトみたいな。酸素がいっぱいあるし。
Vámonos acá.
Más para acá.
Oh, we missed it.
Ben biraz fotoğrafını çekeyim.
Çek.
Ha?
Çek.
Geç şöyle ortada.
So this is it. I finished.
Emirlerin oraya git arkadaşlar.